People of Reddit who knew celebrities before they were famous, how different do they act now? My grandpa, Rip, owned a grocery store in Miami in the late 70s. Wesley Snipes and his friends once stole some candy from his store, and when he caught them he let them have it. Since then Wesley and his friends were regulars. Once, Wesley left his bike in front of the store and it got stolen. Was a pretty bad area. My grandpa gave him his old bike that he kept in the back of the store. My uncle took over in 2001 when my grandpa died. In 2007 he came back to the store while my uncle and cousin were there, to ask about my grandpa. My uncle said they talked for a little over an hour about how my grandpa treated him like a son. When he found out my grandpa passed, he felt guilty he didn't visit sooner. He embraced my uncle and cousin and left. My uncle said he told him they plan on having the building repainted while they talked. About a week later a crew of painters arrived and told my uncle they were already paid to have the building repainted. Such a genuine dude. Edit: sorry I haven't been able to reply to everyone, but thank you guys so much for love. Even though he's often portrayed negatively, glad to see that people still try to find the best in us, even it's a small gesture. Heavy black heart. I was local production contact on Hugh Jackman's touring theater production where he sang his favorite numbers from various musicals. Usually when a show comes in with big name stars, the star usually has a bunch of assistants and they do the job they are paid to do and that's it. The actor come on stage when needed, then back to their dressing room, and if you need anything or if they need anything you talk to the assistant. Prior to the first performance, I am on stage dealing with a few little issues, trying to stay on schedule when Mr. Jackman walks out on stage, and my first thought was that he was going to be angry that we have kept him waiting to do his sound check. Instead he walks directly over to me, introduces himself, asks me my name and asks a couple of questions and doesn't even mention the delays. So we spoke for a few minutes and then he went around and introduced himself to more of the local crew. I was a little blown away by meeting him as I am a fan and thought that was really cool of him. Fast forward a week and I am backstage after the performance and I bump into Mr. Jackman in the hall. I say hi but don't want to bother him, but he stops me. He remembers my name, after meeting 100s of people that week, and asks a few questions that related to our first conversation. Here's the thing though. The guy just did a 2-hour performance and instead of just politely returning my greeting he stopped and talked for a few moments with no false sincerity. To this day I am still blown away by how genuinely nice he was, and always wondered what he was like before he became famous. He would also spend a huge amount of time after the show signing autographs and answering questions at stage door. I live in the town where Dolly Parton grew up, and practically everyone above the age of 50 who grew up here claims to either be a distant relative of Dolly's, or they claim to know her in some way. Everyone has their story of the time they met Dolly. It's pretty obvious, but regardless of who you talk to, Dolly has always been sweet and generous, but everything has simply grown exponentially due to her fame. Examples are the millions of books she gives out for free to children around the globe each month, or how she gave out $10,000 cash to many of my close friends after their houses burned in a fire a couple years back. Thousands of people are employed here and work for one of the businesses she owns, and it's a tad strange to see when you walk in, but the birthing center at the local hospital is funded by and named after her. I honestly can't think of one person I know who doesn't like her. Dolly's heart has only gotten bigger because of fame. Jennifer Lawrence. I moved to Louisville middle of 7th grade year. She was my first friend, and the first person I had a sleepover with. We hit it off. She was very different from me, a cheerleader, came from a lot of wealth, but her family was really awesome and we were both kinda weird and outgoing, so we become good friends very fast. Her family owned a farm that had a children's summer camp, hi-ho, and we went to it a couple of times. She had one of her birthday parties there. I remember her kissing our friend John under a trampoline. We talked about it for way too long. We hung out fairly often until she moved to NYC a year and a half after we met. We started taking acting classes together in 8th grade at a local theater here in town, Walden Theater. It's funny because on our first day, we had no idea we were both taking the class. I walked into the first one, and there she was. We were both so excited to have a friend. We were in the first level of the theater, but after a couple weeks, both moved to the intermediate class. We were the oldest people in the class, so that's why they moved us up so fast. We carpooled together to Walden Theater every Tuesday and Thursday for acting class. I would ride the bus home with her, her mom would take us to class, then my mom would pick us up and take her home. She was a natural at acting, I'll tell you that. I was still somewhat shy, but she could pretty much be given any character, and even though she was 14, you'd believe it. She always talked about how she had a photographic memory, and that's how she was able to remember lines so easily. And she did. It was insane. I have read where she said she's had no prior acting, but this isn't true. I'm not sure if she said this for a part of her look, or maybe she considered it informal, but we definitely took acting classes our entire 8th grade year. I will say, what you see with her is what you get. She was always very quirky, kinda weird, which was funny because she was so preppy presenting, but really wasn't like that. She was very loud, made her presence known. It's been bizarre seeing her in interviews because she acts the exact same. I remember she moved to NYC to pursue modeling between 8th and 9th grade. It worked because soon after she was in a commercial for Burger King and a couple of MTV's My Sweet 16 commercials as well. She was doing online classes for our high school, Ballard High School, and came to visit one time in 9th grade and another in 10th grade. I squealed when I saw her, I genuinely missed her. I had no idea she was about to become one of the most famous actresses of our generation. I always hear she comes to town for holidays, but at this point I have no idea how to contact her. She had a private Facebook for a while, assuming it was really her. For a time, I had a few fake accounts for her request to be my Facebook friend, along with a lot of people we went to school with. The last time we spoke was for my 21st birthday. I'm 29 now, but I would love to catch up with her. I can't help but wonder if she remembers me. I still have her yearbook photo she signed hanging up in my room, our yearbooks, and a couple photos from a disposable camera. So I was working as an audience usher for a certain music competition show a few years ago, that for contractual reasons will remain nameless, and Seal was a judge for that season. In between breaks, a girl with an intellectual disability ran to the bathroom, and when she came back I had to escort her back to her seat. The path to her seat ran right past where he was sitting, and foolish me didn't anticipate to walk between the two when escorting the girl. Well, of course this girl makes a beeline for Seal with a scull of delight that the entire audience heard. I literally saw my career flash before my eyes, but before it had a chance to play out and I had a chance to get the girl away, Seal had already said hello, welcomed her in the gentlest possible way, asked her how she was, and finally gave her a big hug before she went and sat down. He handled like a true gentleman. I know this is not what the question is asking, it's sort of the other way around. Have you met a famous person who is as nice as people say? But as it's about Tom Hanks, it has to be told. My cousin worked at a legal chambers in London, and they were told a film crew were coming in to use it for a few weeks. They were told don't engage with the actors, just go about your business. The film The Da Vinci Code, and, as per above spoilers, Tom Hanks was in it. For a day or three, they all did as they were told, kept their heads down, until eventually Tom Hanks came and knocked on their lunchroom door, basically just said "Soz for messing up where you work, can I join you for lunch," and then it was on. Every day, breakfast and lunch, where time permitted, Tom Hanks was hanging out with these guys like he was a new employee. Reading the newspaper, making cups of tea, getting in the bacon rolls or whatever, calling people's family members to say hi, it's Tom Hanks for a laugh just to see this reaction, basically, after a couple of weeks, was just like one of the team. Everyone on first name terms, just genuinely nice. Last day he made sure to say bye to everyone, he brought them all some kind of gift, I can't remember what, but it was really low-key, inexpensive, but personal, which was a nice touch. Just really wholesome time for everyone. People say Tom Hanks is an absolute lad, and it transpires he is. I didn't believe it either until I moved to Dayton. Then I was going to try and get some merchandise for a gaming tournament we were hosting, and there was some black guy ahead of us in line who has the new Call of Duty in hand, think it was Advanced Warfare at the time, this was a few years back. He started talking with the clerk about TH game and his voice sounded familiar, he started to just kinda look around as the clerk was checking him out and he saw us behind him. We were in uniform since we had just got done at work and we're getting the merch on behalf of the unit. He said, now these guys probably like some Call of Duty while facing us, and finally I recognized his face matched with the voice perfectly. Talked about how I much preferred Rocket League and explained to him what Rocket Car Soccer was all about. Very chill and down to earth guy. Walked out of the GameStop and looked at my coworker and said, holy shit, that was Dave Chappelle. And he didn't know who he was. Damned young ass airman. I just hope that my mentioning of it made Dave Chappelle possibly buy and play Rocket League. I was so close, but I never got to meet David Bowie. I love him and have ever since childhood. When reaching adulthood, suddenly was having people around me who knew him, that was just mind-blowing. And they all said the one same thing, there's not a humbler person on this planet. One of them were his best friend and had been from childhood, and the other one had been his assistant. When visiting the BFF's house, they had pictures up on the walls from different occasions celebrated with David and his family. Pictures from childhood, etc. The assistant said on her first day, she was so nervous about screwing up and missed that he got in. He looked at her, smiled, introduced himself and asked if he could fix her a cup of tea, and he did. She said that everybody working for him loved him, cause he looked after everyone with a genuine heart. I'm from Oxford in the UK and knew Emma Watson when I was in school. She was a massive bully, a strong Regina George vibe going on, and bullied my friend's sister in her year so badly, that my friend's sister had to leave school. The school were refusing to do anything about the bullying issue because Emma was their marketing tool. At every open day all the teachers would proudly tell prospective parents in a reverent, hushed tone, did you know, that Emma Watson goes to our school? Emma just has a really bad rep in Oxford. At one point, she dated one of my friends from another school, and let's just say that the relationship did not last because of her extreme anger management issues and cruelty towards people whom she considered beneath her, like restaurant staff, etc. I was younger than Emma, so thankfully never needed to interact much with her. But here is an incident that will continue to haunt me for the rest of my life. I was hanging out with friends in central Oxford one weekend and we decided to go to the covered market. As we were making our way to the market through the little alleyways, we ran into Emma Watson with her gang of friends standing around some girl, who was clearly younger than her and at least a foot shorter than her. Emma was screaming at her, I don't even remember about what, and hitting the girl on the shoulders and the chest with her bag. I'm ashamed to say that me and my friends did not do anything. We just kind of ran away, which was dumb in retrospect. To summarize, Emma Watson was badly miscast. She would have made a brilliant Draco Malfoy. I used to go fishing at the Hawthorne Creek with Chris Hansen when we were teenagers. He used to be such a friendly and easygoing dude. We would drink beers and shoot the shit about girls and school and stuff. He would always share his catch with me too. As things go, we drifted apart after high school. I randomly ran into him again just a few years ago when I was visiting this girl's house for a date. I had been chatting with her online for a bit, and had set up a movie night for just the two of us, so imagine my surprise when my old fishing buddy was there. He came into the kitchen while I was waiting for her to get the DVD. I had told her she needed to watch Roadhouse, because that movie rocks. It had been a long time since we had seen each other, but he recognized me. Unfortunately, instead of a friendly "hey, long time no see buddy," he was fairly rude, and acted like a huge jerk. Kept asking me all these personal questions. I guess the fame and ego really went to his head, because he had a camera crew following him around too. Talk about narcissistic. My mum went to school with Heath Ledger. Or, a school close to his. Boarding schools, man, idk. I just know that she saw him in school relatively often. Apparently he was a dick in high school. I feel bad saying that about a dead man, but my mum says it's true. Apparently he was like those exaggerated jock bully guys in movies and TV shows. He walked into a room with his lackeys behind him and just commanded the space. At some school dance or something, he was in the middle of the room doing his thing, and literally everyone else was lined up against the walls because they didn't want to get in his way. He went to this prestigious boarding school. Everyone knew that his parents were rich, but he dressed all grunge and tried to act like a troubled kid living in poverty, which is ironic. BC, I went to school with troubled kids living in poverty and they all pretended to be super rich and popular like he was. He was apparently really rude. He pushed people around and pretty much was only ever nice to people in order to manipulate them. I'm sure my mum has more to say about him. She ranted about him for a couple hours the other day. She says that he could have got better and nicer as he got older. TBH what the general public opinion of him is, or really anything about him, so if he actually did get any nicer. All I know is what my mum has told me, but she knew him as that over-exaggerated bully character. This might not count as much, but I vaguely knew Gugu Mbatha before she became a successful actress, lived in the same town, had a mutual friend. Our mutual friend was one of her best friends, so that's how I met her a few times. Really sweet, bright girl, deaf, had something about her. This was 1998. Many years later, in 2011, I'm working in a phone shop when I see her coming in. She's done several movies and TV shows by this point and is pretty well known, though not hugely famous, despite one of the shows she'd done being Doctor Who. She comes in by herself and has a problem with her phone, so I help sort it out. I don't think she recognized/remembered me, as we were never really friends, but we chat and she's still totally cool, funny, engaging and down to earth. She's also the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in life. As I was helping with her phone, I ask if she's got plans for the summer, etc., and she casually mentions that she's doing a bit of traveling in the States. Turns out she was doing a promotional tour of her latest movie, Larry Crown, with Tom Hanks. Years after, I'd still see her occasionally walking through town, after she'd done more movies, TV series in the US, and was definitely more high profile. Always by herself, no entourage, no security or anything. Just happily chilling in the town she grew up in, smiley face. I went to the same college as Colin Kaepernick. I wasn't really a huge fan of jock-type mentalities, but he and his teammates always seemed really nice. I always saw them getting onto the bus after practice, and Colin was always super polite and friendly to our bus lady, who was a really sweet lady. She was the mom of one of my high school friends. The schedule was pretty routine, and every time I saw him he was talking to the bus lady, catching up with her and being jovial. Super polite guy. It was hard to watch all the crap he got and still gets from people. He always struck me as a genuine gentleman who didn't deserve any of the hate he got. Anyone talks smack about him in front of me, I stand up for him and remind them that he is not a celebrity, he is a human and the things he stood up for are real issues. And he did it regardless of how unpopular it made him and well before the movement today. While I didn't know him well, I let them know that he was a good guy and really sweet.